Sunday night, I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice.
With your hosts, Keith Marney.
Mike and Deglio.
Yeah! Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat, then stream it on Hulu. Out of practice.
You see how enthusiastic we are, but 30 seconds ago we weren't.
Final pod from Astoria, Queens. For me.
And welcome to the Out of Practice podcast, a weekly podcast that talks all about ourselves and occasionally David E. Kelly's award-winning series, The Practice. This week we'll be talking about Season 5, Episode 5, We Hold These Truths. This is the Out of Practice podcast, episode number 89, and you are leaving Astoria this week.
I am. I go back and forth. I'm feeling great about it. I'm feeling shitty about it because it's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Then a motorcycle goes by and I'm like, great, let's get out of here. Then I'm feeling stressed because we're packing and it's crappy. Then the Wi-Fi goes out this morning and I'm pulling up wires and the wall's crumbling. And I'm like, you know what? Pack her up, round it up, load her on the wagon, and let's bounce.
We had such a fun thing last night where you, me, and CEO Jen were sending, because you guys are discovering all sorts of fun stuff as you're packing all your stuff, and Jillian and I, we just live here, sending pictures back and forth of horrible crumbling things within our shitty apartments.
Yeah,
and I said it feels like that scene from Jaws. Where they're all like comparing their scars, like, oh, a shark got me here, and this was a harpoon right through me, and it was like, oh, this is the asbestos crumbing out of my wall. This is like the pipe that's leaking for 17 years. It was good fun. I think we're both ready to move into something nicer. Although I will admit, I also feel very wistful about leaving Astoria.
Yeah, I think our therapists would agree that it has a lot more to do than just moving. It's just a confluence of things. Plus, I turned 40 in like a few months, so like I'm going through that now.
Yes.
Yeah, and usually I like to just like go buy stuff that makes me feel better. But
right.
Even not buying a house, I'm finding that just moving in general, all of my money has gone away.
It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of money that just poof gets deleted.
So this morning,
in moving at all, but my God,
when my Wi-Fi router, which granted I've had this Wi-Fi router since me and Jen got married, so a long time.
That's an old router.
Yeah, it crapped the bed, and it's just I'm like, I don't really want to go to Best Buy and buy a new router right now because I'd move in like less than a week. So I'm just gonna have to I'm hardwired, but then. It's a whole thing. But I'll say that, so they're selling our building and the landlord asked if he could come by and show some prospective buyers our apartment. And we were like, you know what? Sure. I'm not going to be obstinate. So we fixed up real nice and vacuumed and stuff. And we were sitting, we're like, man, this place is beautiful. And we really clean up. It's beautiful. But then last night we're packing and like, Keith just said, we're exchanging pictures. The wall is crumbling. There are like spider and insect abodes everywhere in the ceilings. It's nasty. So upwards and onwards. And they just shut down Broadway through. Yeah.
That's a piece of our wall.
Yeah. There's a piece of our floor that is rotted through and I can actually peer into the basement.
This is outside the window. Like if you like right here that I'm touching with my hand is this the outside and the inside have a very tenuous barrier at this point.
It is miraculous that insects and mice can find their way into your apartment. I don't understand how it's happening.
It's crazy. It's like a miracle, but it's mice. Yeah,
It's like a fly landing on your head and staying there for minutes.
As if the metaphor weren't on the nose enough. Like he's got pink eye and a fly on him.
So we're weeks ahead now, but even today,
true, yeah.
Even today, even by the time you're seeing this, the president probably still has COVID-19. And as of today, which is the 10th of October, you'll be seeing this in 2 weeks. So we're delayed now or ahead.
We're in the future. What's it like, guys, in the future? What happened?
Yeah, like he's holding a rally on the balcony today, like a Vita. What's that going to be like? Tell us. Anywho, I guess we should jump in and do this podcast. So if we're a little more frenzied than usual, that's why. I'm basically hamster wheeling in through my internet. God knows if it's working. I hope it's working.
Seriously. Yeah, well, and you guys are actually, I'm on call to be the heavy in case anything goes wrong at your house. So come Thursday, that will be very exciting. And
it's very early in the morning. And so because you're a friend of mine, Keith, I have a second heavy that lives in the building who's actually a first heavy. You're only going to get called in if necessary.
Okay, good. He's the morning heavy. I'm not really a heavy till like 11.
Yeah,
and
but
then
I did say, if you
down.
want to swing by though, because I did tell CEO Jen, I was like, let's be honest, you guys are better friends than Keith and I are. So
that's probably true.
Sometimes I just drop off the thread and you guys keep going.
That's true. I definitely text Jen more than I do you.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm not very entertaining via text, so.
All right. Well, you know who is entertaining? It's our fine listeners who send us filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Well, we heard from our good friend and founding sponsor, Jennifer Massanova, who because I don't remember what happens on the podcast, which is pretty remarkable that I genuinely don't remember what we say and what we talk about. And I don't go back and listen to it. So I could be saying something now I will not remember tomorrow.
I don't find that remarkable at all. Seems absolutely par for the course.
It's possible that we just never say anything remarkable.
Also true.
Or memorable. That's really the issue. Anyway, so you'll have to remind me what prompted this comment, but Jennifer writes about highway hypnosis.
Remember I was driving in my car from my girlfriend's house and I ripped the rearview mirror off and threw it in the back seat? Yeah.
I found that so interesting, and yet I didn't remember that it happened.
It's so interesting, but at least Jennifer not only is commenting on it, but has a potential solve.
Here it is. She says, highway hypnosis, it's a thing. It's kind of in the DSM-5 under DID, dissociative identity disorder, because I am ridiculously familiar with the DSM-5.
This seems to fit me already.
Didn't have to look it up. I just knew it. So close enough. This has happened to me. I'm driving in the car, usually on a route I've taken many times, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm here already? Not anymore, of course, because I'm engrossed in the Out of Practice podcast. Anyway, it's a state where you go just through the motions. It's worse if you're sleepy. Apparently, I cannot account for the rear view mirror. Maybe someone had their high beams on and you were annoyed, and that was your way to solve it in your fugue state. I suppose your mind's desire to avoid an earful from your pop overrode your need for sleep. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, is it possible that Mike just has dissociative identity disorder, i.e. multiple personalities?
Well, I will say this. Many, many, many times I recall, especially on long drives, because I'm one of those people that loathes traffic so much that I will leave at 1 a.m. just to not have to drive during traffic.
Sure.
So it's often that I am in that state where I'm like, oh my God, 30 minutes went by and I barely remember, driving. But never before, this is the one and only time in my life, it happened, an entire 35-minute drive happened with, I don't remember even starting the car or getting out of the car.
That's a little spooky. Like I can definitely, driveway or highway hypnosis, I can definitely remember driving back and forth from school or from work or whatever and be like, wow, I don't remember, but like I'm aware that I got into the car and I'm aware that I traveled. Yours is a very interesting.
Especially since no one can recall me leaving her house because everyone was asleep, and no conversations I had with my family remembered me coming in. It all happened. I wish it were today because we could probably track the turnpike, like, you get clocked in and out.
The cams, or your phone pinging off stuff.
Yeah, I'll never forget too because I had to then super glue my rearview mirror back onto the windshield. Which,
amazing.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah.
Definitely not up to code. Well, it's funny you talk about leaving at 1 o'clock in the morning to avoid traffic. My first move to the city, which we're going to get to actually on this podcast. This is going to go long enough that I will move to the city in this. But as a quick little preview, when we moved on moving day, we rented a truck and I moved my stuff down from Vermont, and I met my roommate Jen, who was in Albany in that area, and we got a moving truck and took it down. We were so afraid to drive the moving truck in New York City streets that we drove through the night. We drove down at, I think, 2 o'clock in the morning. And our plan was we're just going to drive at 2 o'clock in the morning, then park on the street, and then make a deal with the super. He's going to let us in at 6 a.m. So we're so afraid to drive, across the bridge and that kind of stuff that we're going to sleep in our moving van for 4 hours so as not to have to be stuck in traffic, which seems a little silly now, but that was certainly the thought then. So,
well, it's silly, but I think I've actually told this story on the podcast because it happened during the pod, but I'll reiterate since you don't remember what happened last week.
I do not.
The worst of all was, I'll never forget, I had a rehearsal for a gig. I was playing guitar in this cabaret, and I had a rehearsal on the west side, which from door to door from here from Astoria is probably 30 minutes maximum. It was a Sunday.
Drive.
So drive. Yeah. It was a Sunday, and I was like, that's so max 45 minutes. It's a weekend. And
it was a little ambitious, but yeah.
Yeah. But I gave myself an hour like you would.
Yeah.
That's to drive and find parking. Long story short, it was like a Puerto Rican Day parade or one of those parades where they shut everything down. And then you couldn't even it took me 3 hours. Missed the rehearsal. But at that point, I had to drive around and just try to find parking for the gig, which was that night. So 3 hours door to park.
Well, if we ever release our other podcast we've talked about for years and have started but never finished, I have the most amazing story that's not my own story about being stuck on the GW bridge. So look forward to that, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So many podcasts.
So much time.
Aren't real.
So little effort. Oh, all right. Well, here is where we would normally be welcoming
Is that it?
you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
That's
Thanks,
it this
Jennifer.
week.
Thank you. Fugue State is the name of my fucking autobiography.
Yeah, truly. Anyway, so this is where we would be welcoming you into the jury. And how do you join the jury? Well, you leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other service. Just let us know. And we would be so happy for you to do that, because that is really how we get more listeners. So if you want to have more friends here listening, leave us a rating and review, and we will read it here and welcome you to the jury, no matter how many stars you give us. You can give us 1 star and say we're garbage. We will read it and we will welcome you onto the jury, because we are happy to welcome all.
Yeah, don't make me ask
viewpoints.
my sister again. I mean, it's just not something I want to have to do.
No. And I am bragging with my awesome Captain Picard mug that my wife got me. All right. That means it's time to talk about...
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the
Oh,
World.
no, it's not.
The greatest hits.
You
it's not.
confused me. I didn't know what was happening.
I was in a fugue state. I hit the wrong bumper.
Did we decide we were jumping? What has happened?
No, I forgot, we're only in episode 89. I'm just trying to figure out what we do here. No. In fact, we're still going to hop back in the time machine, though.
Okay.
We're going to hop back in the time machine to November 5th, the year 2000. And that's going to bring up everyone's eternal question. What was happening?
This day in the basement.
I did it. I got it right this time.
Nice.
And boy, this is a fun one. So we are actually going to combine our This Days in the Basement with our favorite new segment because it all comes together. It all coalesces and congeals into one singular story that we're going to tell all at once. And that is, of course, this was right before, 2 days before the 2000 presidential election. So would you like to start the segment? The segment we like to call
Back in Time. True Crime. Stolen Election Edition. Mike Indeglio comes back from some sort of crazy first love date with his girlfriend at the time. Also, voting in his first presidential election. Proudly, in a effort to show his support not only for democracy, but also for our planet, he votes for Al Gore, champion of democratic ideals and, what shall we say, love for the planet and action on climate change. Mike casts his vote believing that it matters, that his one vote, his one voice can change the country. Him and his girlfriend canoodle, watching the returns. The returns are coming in. ABC News calls it for Gore. CBS News calls it for Gore. CNN calls it for Gore. Gore is the president. We got another 4 years of a Democratic president. So pumped. We're going to save the world, save the country, save the climate. We go to bed and wake up and... What has happened? It's no longer Gore. It's too close to call. Days pass. They can't make a decision. They have to go all the way to Congress, to the courts, and it is handed to Bush. And Mike learns the life lesson that day. Nothing matters.
Wow, okay. Now, it is time to turn the tables. It's my turn. Get your guitar. CEO Jen is bringing snacks.
We've only been going for 10 minutes. I need a snack.
Okay. Well, very similarly, I was watching the returns at the Eastman dorms in my apartment set up with my college girlfriend. This was also my first presidential election that I voted in. It was not the first election. I voted in the midterms in 98 because I was old enough. But I had sent in my ballot voting for Al Gore, the lockbox champion, the boring guy who was going to be good for the country, but he did not have a correct strategy. And we watched as the Florida, like you said, got called for Gore, then it got taken back, and then Hanging Chads, and what was her name? The Attorney General in Florida, forget what it was. She was a monster. And the Supreme Court, not relevant anymore, stole the election. They stopped the recount, and Gore ended up losing by a couple hundred votes, and we were all very sad, but we didn't know this back on election day, because it took months into December, and we were all sad. Wow. Okay. That was the thing that we did.
You know, when we talked about it.
Yeah. and talk about it is pretty loose.
Yeah, I was on the toilet and I sent you a text.
where all of our best meetings happen.
Which really, it sounded like an idea, but it was more like, how can we just like quickly roll through the pod so that I can pack the rest of my stuff?
Right. But instead we took much, much longer.
Yeah. And like, we didn't even like decide on a key. And so I realized I didn't really have a chord progression ready to go. And so we really just.
Look, I didn't have a key or a chord progression.
Yeah, but
most of it was in C minor.
See, that would have been helpful. Hold on, look, now we had to remedy this.
I didn't want to make it easy because I didn't want our podcast to seem over rehearsed. There you go. It's a very good C minor.
Does it look like I'm humping my guitar now? This is like really
100%.
good people always like give the vibrato, and now it just looks like I'm humping it.
Yeah, it absolutely 100% does. Well, before Mike gets to completion, we need to complete this segment and move on to...
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines
that made me
from
laugh.
Vermont, essential sports updates, and for some inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now back to Keith and Mike.
Before Mike Mike finishes and has to refinish that guitar, let us talk about what's going on in the world. Don't worry, the number one song continued to be... Come on over, baby. Christina Aguilera in her last week of domination. In its first week of domination, of course, was Charlie's Angels, which took in $40 million. The cover of the Burlington Free Press. I didn't look up because it's the same thing I had last week. Well, I'm assuming something was going on in Vermont. It was probably politics. And a more professional podcaster would have looked it up. But I guess I didn't. That's just what happens. All right, thank you very much, Fake Christina. That means it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
It's time for Sportsball.
The New York Football Giants efficiently dispatched the lowly Cleveland Browns 24-3 in Cleveland. Kerry Collins threw 2 touchdowns to Amani Toomer and another to Ike Hilliard, while Doug Peterson could only muster 176 yards and a pick for Cleveland. The Philadelphia Football Eagles rebounded from their embarrassing loss to the Giants with a 16-3 overtime victory over the Cowboys.
I think it's worth noting, in the continuing saga of Tom Brady and us, Tom has been shatting the bed, and so I didn't start him last week when I was playing Keith Varney, and guess what he did? He set a career fantasy high by putting up 50-plus points, and I didn't get any of them.
Well, the good news is I was so terrible, it didn't matter.
No, I still won. Aaron Rodgers, it turns out, is pretty good.
Is also good. Yeah, I mean, if this were like 5 years ago, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady as your quarterbacks would be amazing.
Interestingly, though, last night, 2 nights ago, Tom Brady again lost to now Bears quarterback Nick Foles.
Nick Foles,
scratched
Super
a little
Bowl
pit
hero.
Yeah, although he was pretty bad, they still won.
Scratched a little pit of what?
I don't know. Have you ever started a sentence and midway through realized that you didn't even know what you were talking about? Because that happens to me often.
I believe me doing that has been thoroughly documented over, 9 days of continuous recordings on this podcast.
Fugue State.
Fugue State.
Let's move on. Let's just get to play that network thing. Oh, no, I don't know.
No.
What will the weather be in Pennsylvania?
'Cause we all need to know. Was it hot or did it snow?
It didn't snow, I'm sure.
Tell me the weather from 21 years ago. Don't shake
there was
that
a time
guitar
when
again.
I put some effort into something.
You sure did. And I can't wait to watch what you've put together this week.
Let's roll it. There's nothing. Let's move. Let's move.
I just wanted to have you sit in your shame and think about what you did.
I want to make it clear. Actually, it was an excellent segment. There was FX. There were green screens. I had extras come in, but I packed it.
Celebrity cameo?
I packed it up.
You packed it.
Yeah.
You packed it. Yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, so many boxes. All right.
It's a little time.
Fine.
I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. And I'm not going to take this anymore.
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
I hurt my neck every time I do that.
Oh, God.
And I
Oh,
keep
God.
trying to remember not to do it. But I do it.
Do not headbang nearing 40.
I went to a Rage Against the Machine concert once and hurt myself. But when I was 17 years old, I went to an Everclear concert. Have I told this story to you? The one and only time I went crowd surfing.
Oh, no.
I'm at an Everclear concert. You remember them?
Vaguely.
I am still living with your...
Oh, here we go. We're going to get a concert. Just wipe down the guitar before you play it.
I am still living with your ghost, lonely and dreaming of the West Coast. I don't want to be your downtime. I don't want to be your stupid G with a big black boots and an old suitcase. Do believe I found myself a new place. Oh yeah, delay on Zoom.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I play.
That was gonna be. I can't wait
That was gonna
to
be
see
bad.
how that sounds.
Oh, I've never heard that song before.
Oh well. Anyway, I'll tell this part of the story. So we were really into this band, Everclear. They were called in the '90s, of course, and we go to the Electric Factory in Philadelphia. My parents let us go. We drive into Philly from the suburbs. We're watching this concert. We're rocking. We're rolling. We're not drinking because we were actually pretty responsible kids, and
That changed.
everybody's like, crowd surfing, and that's all happening, and they're coming over to me, and they're trying to lift me, and I was like, nah, it's all right. Even then, I had an old man's instinct of like, nah, it feels unsafe.
I'm all right.
This isn't for me. But my friends are cajoling me, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, let's go. And as I'm being lifted, Keith, as I'm being lifted, I recognize that there's a big hole in this mass of people, and I'm pretty certain that I'm gonna go into this hole. Well, damned if they don't launch me into the air, and I go directly into the hole and smash my shoulder. So for the rest of the concert, I'm in agonizing pain because I had broken my collarbone before.
Oh, no.
Luckily it wasn't broken. But anyway, I had to drive home. I was in pain the whole time, embarrassed to hell because I was like, yeah, and they just threw me into a hole. Years later, in fact, this is but maybe 3 years ago, we hear that Everclear is playing a concert at Lily Langtree's, which was where we had our senior prom, and they have now turned it into a shitty casino. And we're like, damn right, let's go. Tickets are like $8. We roll to this concert. I grab one beer. I don't even drink beer, but it's like a high school thing. So we go. The band it's no longer the band. It's just the lead singer of the band with some new band he put together. Keith,
Right.
You ready for it?
Ready.
They only knew 3 songs. The concert was over before I finished my beer.
No.
And they were like, they're like, we don't know any of the other songs. They didn't know the songs.
Wait, so
that
he
was the
just
end of the
brought in
concert.
local guys to back him up?
They weren't local. They were like, these guys were great. Because the first 3 tunes they did, they were ripping it up.
But they didn't
mean,
plan ahead, like, hey, we're going to do a concert. How many songs do you know?
Don't know that they expected maybe anybody to show up, or I don't know. It was bizarre. And we were we thought it was a joke, so we waited around when they left the stage, and they just didn't come back. The lights went on, it was great. And I was like, well, for $7 and a beer.
Look, I am not a music doctor, but what you just played there, I was able to figure out from
that was a G chord.
That's a G chord. Oh, I figured that out. Yeah, I bet I know where that's going to go. Maybe a C and then a D, and then I think we're pretty much done for the song. And
we've done this. Yeah, well, it's the 90s, so they only wrote one song in the 90s.
I was able to figure it out. I'm sure these guys could probably have done it as well. All right.
Yeah, well.
Anyway.
What are we doing?
Wow.
What's happening?
Yeah, we're talking about I believe
The
we're
practice?
talking about the damn episode part.
Oh, wait,
that we
before
just
you
went
talk
on.
about the episode. You see, I thought we were going to rush through it, but now I have a lot to say, apparently. Last night, our boy David E. Kelly got a shout out.
Really?
Yeah. Well, so Colbert had on the portion of the cast of The West Wing.
Oh,
Because
yes.
on October 19th, they are airing a special episode of the West Wing where they actually filmed one of my favorite eps from season 4 about voting and democracy. They filmed it as a stage play.
Right.
And since, what's his name? Leo is no longer with us. You know who plays Leo? Is Sterling K. Brown.
Yes.
Anyway, so Sorkin is talking about how what his idea for the West Wing was, how he wanted. There was nothing on TV showing people working at the top levels of government who actually had any competence, right? Like on TV, doctors are always very competent, police people are always very competent, and he's like, even lawyers in the David E. Kelly always wrote them with such dignity and competence and intellect. I wanted to do the same for the West Wing, and then I started thinking about dignity, competence, and intellect when it comes to the practice, and those don't always fit.
Look, he clearly didn't see all the episodes, but there are definitely episodes which demonstrate that. There are other episodes as well.
Cut to Richard Bay fake cutting a steak, like 3 inches above the steak.
I love how, like, of all the things that they've done wrong, including murder, you're like, that's what I really care about. That's what I'm
I just think
about.
it was a miss on all levels. The fact that none of the other actors, which you're not supposed to give notes, but I would have been like, why are you... Maybe, you know what? They might have been like, we only have one steak, so we don't get to... You can't cut that steak.
Yeah, but that's on the
Nobody
director.
cut it in the edit. Nobody cut it
The
in
director didn't tell him that it was in frame. That's the issue. Like whoever is setting up the shot needs to tell the actor your hands are in frame. They're not.
They didn't have any other setups that they could have cut to. No, they had no other angles.
No.
The editor missed that too.
Well, or the editor, if he didn't have coverage,
I
didn't
quit
have
the pod.
coverage.
This is it.
That's it. I'm out of here. Oh my God.
All right, let's talk about the episode.
I'm playing it again.
Damn it! My life has value.
Okay, come on. All right, we are going to talk about, like I said before, Season 5, Episode 5, We Hold These Truths. This was written by series creator David E. Kelly, of course, and another first-time writer. There's clearly a lot of turnover in the writer's room for Season 5. New writer Jonathan Shapiro. This is his first The Practice episode. Like I said, he also wrote on The Blacklist, Mr. Mercedes, Justice, of course, Boston Legal later, and he created The Paul Reiser Show and Goliath. So he is now a show runner, and it was directed by Dwayne Clark, who last wrote on Germ Warfare just 2 episodes ago, which leaves us with one important thing to do.
Is Goliath David E. Kelly?
What is that supposed to mean? What's your problem? Is this what happens to women when you insert your penis?
What?
What does Mike think's gonna happen?
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
Good question.
Let me real quick. I covered it up there. Interestingly, I covered up that little your Easter egg.
The
I want
secret
back
egg.
real quick. Yeah. See, I can't tell. It looks sort of like a golden bracelet, like that Thanos would wear in the Avengers.
Somewhere out in the world, a couple of our fans are screaming into the sky.
It also, to me, what it looks like is like the thing.
I hear you, Phoenix.
The thing that. Am I supposed to know that? Should I know that right off the bat?
Well, some people would, and some people would not. The cool people would know
Like a shell
exactly
game?
what that is.
Well, the Hold These Truths, I think, is definitely something, a First Amendment right. I know that Bobby clearly is going to have to retry the case of the lying brother case. I also look, to me, it looks like, I've never, if we ever do that other podcast, my dad used to take us to the circus all the time. It looks like the golden center thing that the ringmaster stands on. So I'm going to say, but it also to me looks like a one true singular sensation hat you would wear during a chorus line. And since they just shut down Broadway, I'm going to go that direction. I'm going to say that there's a production of, there's an actor, there's a performer who is being discriminated against due to his sexuality. And
what if Jimmy is auditioning for the chorus line, for a chorus line in this show?
And Jimmy has to defend our gay character because Jimmy has now become the gay rights activist of the firm.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I heard my back break itself in that one move.
We're too old even to pretend to dance. Okay. Well, that's a very interesting prediction now.
Well,
okay.
I mean, is it, or do you just need another excuse to say that's interesting because you have to meet your quota for the episode?
Oh man, if I got a quarter for every time I said that's interesting, I could afford my house.
Yeah, well, good luck.
It's amazing. Yeah. Ugh. Okay. It is time for you to switch over to your favorite podcasting device of choice and listen to us. Listen to this show. We'll see you back on YouTube shortly.
Wow, Keith, clearly that episode put me through it.
It really did. It possibly electrocuted you. Look, I have not had good hair situations ever, but you've got some Doc Brown going there.
Yeah, this is like COVID meets election stress meets moving meets the whole. It's really, it's actually fairly impressive in many regards.
Look,
Marty!
as two 40 and or impending 40-year-olds, I'm just happy there's anything there to be bad.
Man, we really,
I'll take it. I will take it. But first,
dollar store Provisha. Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. We're doing a podcast. A podcast which always continues with. Oh right. Oh, God damn it! I forgot what was. This is the second time I forgot. Oh, I don't remember what we do on the show. But in fact, what we do is recap this episode so you can remember what happened. But first, we have to find out how.
Mike has 30 seconds to remember what just happened
segue.
on the show.
I need a snack.
Not only is Keith flustered, but so's everybody on our side. Eugene's defending a guy and playing Jeezum, or threatens to, but it turns out he doesn't really do it, and then the guy gets off anyway, so it's good. But good guy Helen is still in play. Bobby's still working with crazy guy, and he's threatening people, and he's Bobby McRambo, and we got to go into a 6th episode with Bruce Davidson. And Jimmy's big old dick flops out. He mocks a judge. He mansplains a judge, and the judge acquiesces, and Jimmy gets the client off. Well, he gets him 6 months. He gets him a quarter sentence.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, now we're going to adjudicate everything that just happened and hand out some.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Out of Practice podcast, in unofficial, unsolicited, unfactual association with David E. Kelly Productions, proudly present
OOPSY.
The OOPSYs! Celebrating excellence in acting good, lawyering good, guesting good, and being Tom Brady. Not to mention, this is where we rate the episode and stuff. Now, here are your hosts, Keith and Mike.
What the hell are the OOPSYs?
Well, they're a fake award show we do every week that begins with.
I did the thing with my neck again. It's only been an hour and a half.
Okay.
So I don't know how you could not pick Jimmy here. I mean, not only did he get his client from 24 months down to 4 or 6, whatever it was, but he also did so by literally, what's the word I'm looking for? Literally sort of cutting the balls off, castrating a judge in a courtroom.
Castrating and castigating.
Both of those things, one literal, one not so literal, figurative, if you will. My brain spinning trying to come up with those vocabulary words in my current state. Really, I can smell it.
Wait, here we go.
Mike has 30 seconds
To take the SATs again.
But he actually got through to said judge. And instead of like the last time we did it, Eleanor was able to get the judge's ruling thrown out in front of his boys. But this time, the judge actually has a change of conscience, a change of heart because of Jimmy. So Jimmy's not only most valuable for his client, but most valuable for sort of officers of the court, if you will. So Jimmy.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think you can certainly say that Eugene did well. He got an innocent client off for murder, so the stakes were clearly higher in his case. Also, Helen was able to... Well, she lost. She was not able to effectively prosecute her defendant, but she did at least try to be morally better than usual Helen. So partial credit for that. But no, I think Jimmy just did a lot of really good work. Jimmy had an effect on more cases because I think we will probably see a change in how that judge works moving forward. And, was able to defend his client while also teaching a lesson and being, I think, compassionate with the judge who, was kind of a dum-dum. So congratulations to Jimmy with your MVL. What's next is...
Already famous.
Been on TV, getting a paycheck. First entry on your IMDb. Way to go. But you're the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor on the episode. Okay, best guest actor.
Renee
who?
Aubergenois. Who made Keith leave a pile of goo right on the floor in front of him. So I feel like it's full circle here.
Yeah. Renee Aubergenois. I looked it up. That's the most homework I've done this entire
So I wasn't wrong. I just
series.
put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
You were way closer than I used to be until I looked it up.
In all seriousness, though, he, you usually don't see someone who has to chew the scenery and then pull the full, sincere scene at the end. And he did both those things, bookending what was really wonderful. Look, it could have been total comedy, those monologues, but he delivered them sincerely, which got across the point that condescension, he didn't play that condescension. The condescension was inferred because he was playing it sincerely. And I think that is the sign of a great actor. And so I think it's a no-brainer.
It's good acting. It's also good comedy.
Yeah.
Because what was funny about it was his sincerity, just his incredibly wrong-headed, dumb sincerity. Renee is a legendary actor, and you see all the things that he can do. I liked being able to, because you don't usually see a lot of his comedy, and he was very, very funny in this, as well as incredibly heartfelt, and just, it was really interesting to watch this person have humility injected in them and have to go through the stages of humility, because I think there are stages to humility just like there are to grief. And because you have anger, you have denial, you have acceptance, and you change comes hard earned with humility too. And I liked seeing that journey. So obviously, of course, Renee Aubergenois gets his OOPSY. Another Star Trek OOPSY. Pretty exciting. And now it's time to hand out another one to You killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face. You're the best actor on the show.
You know, I thought that Lara Flynn Boyle was really great this episode. I want to shout that out. I thought New Helen,
It's been
I
a good
think,
season for her.
yeah, New Helen really suits Lara Flynn. I feel like, I don't know if she had any input into this kind of change, but if she's wearing it better. I think it's also more realistic. I think Stone Cold Helen was a little, I don't know, didn't work as well for her. But I think we might be on the same page here. Again, I think once again, Michael Badalucco just slays it. And, you know, with that one scene in question, even on the rewatch, I think you were right. I think he actually, what I called bad acting was Michael Badalucco acting good, bad Jimmy acting. And that's a lot of hoops to jump through. And I thought his telling of the first two stories that Renee gives were great, funny. But then Jimmy Michael somehow one-ups it even though we know the joke's coming, and it's just so good. And then that scene in the jail cell, I think, is the scene of the episode, and both of them are just, it's wonderful. It's wonderfully shot, it's wonderfully written, it's wonderfully acted by both of them. The scoring is wonderful, but I think it's Michael's episode, and I think you'll agree.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I thought Michael did a tremendous job with this. I would love to, in a lot of these shows, the scripts are available online. Like all the Star Trek scripts are up there, and I would love to read that scene. What was the direction given to Michael there? Was it just Jimmy laughs, or Jimmy laughs too? Was that in the script? Was that a directorial decision? Was that Michael's decision to play it that way? I'd love to know, Michael, if you're listening, write in, let us know.
Before anybody writes in to tell us, we've looked, and anything you can find online, anything I've been able to find online, has been transcriptions of the episode, which is not particularly what we're looking for.
Right. I want to know what the writers intended. What were the stage directions given to Michael? Anyway, just terrific performance. I'd love to see more scenes with Renee and Michael, because that was an interesting little duo you had going on there. All right. So yes, obviously, congratulations to Michael Badalucco for your Best Actor OOPSY Award, which brings us to the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
Tom, a little consistency would help me here. If you're going to be great, be great with the points. Okay. What was last week?
Last week was unanticipated or out of nowhere Dunkaroos commercial Tom Brady.
Oh man, that's asinine.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I can't wait for you to see what I did.
Hopefully you'll put it in my email soon so that I can do it. I can get this out so we'll have 2 weeks off, Keith. You and I.
That's true. What are we going to do? It's going to be so weird.
Oh, I have a lot to do.
I don't. I'm not moving for fucking forever.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it off air. I want to know what the extra month delay is. I thought November was happening. Okay,
we'll talk about it off air because nobody cares.
This week, I think it only right. Do you know Tom is quite an accomplished musician? Did you know that, Keith?
I did not know that.
Well, you're about to know it because you will be photoshopping Tom Brady jamming with Ray Charles, winning the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady. Yeah.
Tom Brady jamming with Ray Charles wins the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady. Perhaps Tom Brady jamming with Ray Charles and Judge Judy, Tom Brady.
I like it. A nice trio, if you will.
Nice trio. All right. Well, congratulations, that Tom Brady, which brings us to...
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
Well, friends, I thought it was a great episode. I'd like to shout out specifically just great writing. Absolutely stellar writing across the board. Comedy is difficult, especially when it's not the sort of main focus of what the show does. And what I really, really enjoyed when it comes to comedy is not just those two monologues, those story monologues that Renee gives us, but there's a thing. I'm sure you've heard of it. Most of the people listening to this pod, but there's a general rule in comedy called the rule of threes, where a joke is set up twice and then it's knocked out of the park on the third run. And the first two stories that Renee told, I was thinking to myself, where's the three? I knew the third was coming, but I thought it was going to be a little much for him to deliver it, and then for them to swing it back around and have Jimmy deliver it, I thought was just genius. I thought all three were really well written. I thought that last scene that we mentioned before was just so splendid, almost to the point where it sort of not took away, but it overshadowed a little bit what I thought you mentioned was a pretty interesting point being made in the cop case. But this is one of those cases where, when we're trying to do three cases, it gets a little bit of a short shrift. And I thought that the case with the gay cop, they didn't even make a point. And I wonder if, that sort of tag scene where we find out that the client was actually innocent all along, because it's true. I did just assume he was guilty, that the point we were being made was that here's a guilty guy who's going to get off if this cop doesn't admit he's gay. And maybe that was that. And I'm interested to hear your point, because it was either underwritten or they used our implicit bias, assuming this guy was guilty, against us. And then that flip wasn't just for Eugene, it was for us, the viewer. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit. So I'm interested to hear your piece. And then the Bobby case, it's jumped to the shark for me, the Bruce Davidson thing. I think they're trying to get us reinvigorated by having Bobby McRambo return. So maybe something there. But that all said, I'm willing to kind of set aside my questions about case B and case C, because case A was so juicy, and I'm going to give it 8 spare tires.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I agree with all the things that you said. I really the comedic situation, like you said, the rule of 3, you're absolutely right. And this was an episode that I remembered when I was watching it. And I remember I was like, oh, it's this one. Oh, fun. Because I really, really like the Jimmy and Renee's storyline from start to finish. I really liked it. I think you bring up an interesting point about implicit bias, because one of the things that I struggled with this episode, and I think you may have rescued it a little bit, was the fact that our 2 disposable guilty, or at least we thought disposable guilty clients, were sort of just generic black clients. Right. And I was like, do they both have to be black? What's like, if they're just going to be stand-ins as guilty clients as we go through these stories, and perhaps I don't know if you're giving them too much credit by exploiting our implicit bias, assuming that he's guilty, and whether or not his race played a part in that. I don't know if that was a message to us or that was just sort of lazy writing there. And I really don't know. And I think maybe the 5% better written show would have made that clear. But I agree with you. I thought it was a very well written episode, and I liked that it showed different elements of compassion, sometimes well-intentioned, but not as compassionate as it should have been. Sometimes poorly intentioned, but somehow pulling it back. There was a lot going on there, and it was dicey in terms of outing the cop, and the position that it put Eugene in, because he's stuck with a real ethical dilemma, which I think he understood. It wasn't really explicit, but implicitly it was clear that Eugene understood the moral quandary he was in, because he's, on one hand, his job is to zealously defend his client at all costs. And we've seen him plan B people and just like really go for it. But there's also clearly a part of him that was like, it is to out this cop is sort of unethical and not helpful here. And in some ways he did even less ethical thing by exploiting him. Exploiting the fear of outing him was almost less ethical than just outing him in the first place, because from his standpoint, as Helen pointed out very well, that if the jury knew what he was talking about, it's sort of like, oh, all right, that has nothing to do with the case. But by exploiting this person's anxiety to make it seem as if it were relevant to the case, it was a really interesting tightrope that Eugene had to walk there. And I found that interesting. And the show there were a lot of tightropes here, because Eugene is walking it, Helen's walking it, the show is walking it. And I thought they actually navigated it pretty well, and in an interesting fashion. So that is a very long way of saying I also really liked this episode. And I agree with you that the Bruce Davison case, like, I don't know where that's going. It's time to, wherever you're going, get there. Because it's definitely felt like filler. And like Bruce Davison was like, look, I have an Oscar nomination. I'm only going to come on if I get 9 episodes. They're like, 9? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know when Bobby leaves the show, and, I shouldn't know, but it does seem like either they knew it or this, I don't know, chicken or egg kind of situation, because Bobby's becoming the least interesting character on the show. And is that on purpose? Is that because it's not Dylan's fault. It's,
this case leaves him on one note.
Yeah.
As long as we're on this case, Bobby has one note, and that is, my friend, I think, is innocent, and I'm trying to get him off. And there are more layers there to play with, but it's also tough to judge something like this without knowing where it's going. Now, without knowing the end. So, I mean, I think we've proven at this point that this case has been dragged on for too long. Mm-hmm. But I'm not ready to render a verdict on whether this case was good or not. Just that it's been going on for too long.
Yeah, when we get to its conclusion, we'll summarize everything. But you got to give a score.
Yes, I got to give a score, and the score. I'm also going to do what you did and set aside that case, understanding they were just doing some bricklaying for later. Mm-hmm. I like this episode very much. I'm giving it 8.5 tires.
8.25. I like it.
8.25. Very good. Best episode of the season so far. Okay.
Agreed. I want to just shout out, the fact that we found some ambiguity in what they were trying to tell us with that case about implicit bias, maybe like you said. Some of that credit also goes to Dominic LeRae, who I thought played the perp, quote unquote, the defendant, very neutral, and didn't show us shades of either side, didn't overdo it in either way, which allows that ambiguity to be active.
Well, he performed it as somebody who was aware of the implicit bias he was up against.
Especially in that little scene with Eugene at the very end, when Eugene's like, I'll see you next time. And he's like, good.
Well, and it's very clear that this character has been fucked over by the system many times before. This is not his first rodeo with this.
Yeah, even the cop says it, right? He's like, I recognize him from before.
Yeah. And so I don't, I think there's stuff to infer there about the character, but also the environment the character lives in. Interesting. A lot of interesting stuff going on there.
8.25 spare tires.
8.25 spare tires. Okay, you have gotten through another very long episode of the Out of Practice podcast. If you would like to email us about it sometime whenever you finish, you can find us on social media at Facebook and Instagram at Out of Practice. You can email us directly at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. You can check out our blog and ranking of episodes at outofpracticepodcast.blogspot.com. The Out of Practice podcast is brought to you by generous donations from Leanne Wrights, Cloudlover69, Jorge Navoa, and Jennifer Massanova.
I know you're probably donating to your political candidates, but
I certainly am.
If you want to donate to us, you can do so. You can join the jury or give us money. You can find the links to do so in the show notes. But to get back to that point, you should vote. If you aren't planning on it, make a plan to vote, or if you've already made your plan, find one of your family members or somebody who could maybe use some help and help them make a plan to vote. Keith, do me a favor. Put me on the stand. Unseal my personal records. Find the most damning thing in there. Be about to spill those beans and then decide at the last minute, instead of outing me, just fire off some laser sounds.
Laser sounds indeed, my friend.
I might have to make you start doing this. I'm running out of creativity.
That's clear.
I'll see you from Pennsylvania next time.
Pennsylvania!